All right, ladies and gentlemen of internet land, going for a 5-mile walk today. This is April 10th, 2024. Looks like somebody's inside Val's drive-in, getting it ready. So today, I have the camera mounted on my chest, which I can do with this GoPro because it has the stabilizing. I am anticipating getting rained on today. It's been raining off and on. I'm gonna have heavy rain tonight. C'est la vie. That is the good thing about this GoPro. So you watch these kids using a scooter. And what's good about the GoPro is the stabilizer that it has in it, along with the horizontal correction. As long as you have good daylight, you don't have very much in the way of blurriness. The only drawback is you can't really see where I'm looking because I don't have it on my head. And I hope that's okay. It's actually better for me because I can wear a ball cap with a visor for the rain, and it makes it easier for me to clean the lens of the camera and also to check it because it's hard to look at it when it's on my head. Plus, as the warmer weather comes, I'm going to be wearing less. I won't be wearing a hat. Well, sometimes, actually, you know what? I do wear a hat sometimes on my walks in the summertime. And it's because of headlights and street lights. I can just tip my head down, cut the glare out. But we do what we gotta do. So as you can see, there's very little snow left. And whatever's left is not going to make it to this weekend. Now I got about 3 out of the last 4 days I've walked 6 miles. So today I'm going to take it easy and just do 5 miles. We'll make it. I can actually hear the ground making noise. I already know what those are. Those are worms. They can tell it's going to rain. There's actually raindrops on the road. They come out and enjoy the water. So today, the Senate, the Maine Senate, is having a vote on gun measures, firearm measures. I'd be really surprised if everything doesn't pass this time. They couldn't get anything done last year, and I think they put their heads together this year, and they came up with a plan. I don't think they would be voting on this stuff today if they didn't have the votes, because the Democrats in Maine are very sneaky and they play dirty, as evidenced by the propaganda and editing of Laurel Libby's, Representative Laurel Libby, a Republican. She got thrown into the pile of MAGA Republicans. Thanks. Racist Nazis. Because she was explaining truthfully in her floor speech that paramilitary training is not illegal. It's guaranteed by the Second Amendment. The Maine House passed a paramilitary bill preventing people from gathering and training. They didn't really clearly define what the criteria was, so I guess any family that goes shooting on the weekend is going to be a criminal, which is why I hope it doesn't pass. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of Democrats that go shooting in Maine on the weekends. So they might be calling their senator and say, hey, we're not supporting this. Because that's what happened last year. Things passed in the House, but then they didn't pass in the Senate. So the paramilitary bill was in response to the news media hyping up MAGA Republican country up north, where this white supremacy group, which was a white supremacy group, neo-Nazis. The thing is, though, the guy running it was a Democrat, voted for Biden, and the media didn't mention that to people, of course. Why would they? So they made a big news story out of that, and some Democrats said, okay, well, let's make a bill for that, banning paramilitary training in Maine. Turns out the guy that was doing that up north packed up all his stuff, went to another state in New England. And I think it was something ridiculous like Massachusetts or Connecticut, which I thought was really funny. But he is a Democrat, so probably knows people there that has land, one of those things. So anyway, that's what we got. They weren't even here anymore. So they went through all this trouble to take everybody else's rights away over somebody that just did that on a few weekends, didn't like the press, and left Maine. Democrats here watch the local media and they believe everything in it. They subscribe to Newsweek, Time, New York Post, New York Times, Washington Post. And they believe all that stuff is fact. I don't know why they do that. I'm just a Joe Blow sitting in a kitchen with a laptop, and I know more than they do. So, no excuse for them to do that. Basically, though, Michael Bloomberg spent $100-something million funding these gun control groups. This is the product of their labor, and hopefully it won't pass. Michael Bloomberg's been trying to get guns banned here since he left office in New York many years ago. So there's different things on the docket that they're voting on tonight. The dumbest one, and this is dumb, is LD 2086 for Maine. 131st legislature, I believe. Could be wrong on that. Because last year's 2086 is probably a different subject matter altogether. But if you find LD 2086 and it mentions machine guns, then you found the correct one. So to be clear, everybody currently can legally buy mechanically assisted triggers, ones where you pull the trigger, it fires, and then when you release the trigger, it fires again. So you can shoot faster. So they're called binary triggers. Well, the Democrats don't like that, so that's what this bill is about. Reclassifying semi-automatic firearms, which includes shotguns, by the way. Okay, this is what's funny about it. If this passes, and you do anything to alter a shotgun with a binary trigger, the shotgun will be classified as a machine gun, if you can believe that. So, anything that shoots multiple projectiles with one trigger pull will be considered a machine gun in Maine if this passes. So that is completely ridiculous, because if you get a Ruger 1022, shoots 22s, 22 LR, and you put a binary trigger in it, it classifies that 1022 Ruger as being a machine gun, if you can believe that. So, as comical as that is, it has a chance of passing today. So that would make any semi-automatic firearm a machine gun. And the beauty of it is, they didn't specify exactly what equipment. It just says any equipment that assists in shooting faster. So that means people that do competition shooting and they use competition triggers, they're going to go to the range with their pistol to try to compete against other people, and their pistol all of a sudden is going to be a machine gun. So this is the logic the Democrats are using, because they don't even know what they're talking about. So there we have it. There it is. The other bill today is to increase the yellow flag law to basically what it means. It'll be a red flag law. So now you don't need a healthcare professional or law enforcement to petition a judge to take somebody's firearms. Now, with like the other red flag laws, you get somebody going through a divorce and she's afraid of her husband, he'll have his guns taken away. Combined with the other piece of legislation that they're probably maybe passed tonight and didn't pass last year. Before the mass shooting, they didn't pass it. They couldn't get it passed before the mass shooting happened. So now that they've had a mass shooting, there's been more Democrats screaming about it to their representatives. So Peggy Rotundo, who is my senator, I've sent letters, I've called. It's all I can do. So it's her bill. She wants a 72-hour waiting period on the purchase of firearms. There was a lot of Democrat opposition to that, which I'm assuming is still there. Because being upset about a mass shooting is one thing, being willing to give up your rights to make people happy is another altogether. And we all know that none of this that they're passing is going to stop mass shootings anyway. Even if they limited magazines to 10 rounds, doesn't matter. Anybody familiar with a firearm can change magazines in a split fraction of a second. It's really stupid. Makes no sense. Most people can fire somewhere around 100 rounds in a minute, even with limited capacity magazines. So this is ridiculous. Their thinking is, okay, you empty the magazine, you have to stop and reload the magazine. That's how dumb they are. And they literally believe that. There's no limit on how many you can own or buy. So you could have a belt that holds 30 10-round magazines and you could still do a mass shooting. So the logic is incredibly stupid. Do you think somebody that's going to do a mass shooting cares about what the laws are? Oh, geez, I'm going to go shoot up a place, kill 100 people, and I'm going to be worried that I might be prosecuted because I violated a gun law. When the truth is, when I'm done, the person's going to shoot themselves dead. It's always what happens. So, this ridiculous rhetoric is propaganda, and that's all it is. Unfortunately, people are not showing up to protest it like the protesters that are trying to ban your gun show up. Most people are working. Most people are working, and they don't have time to go there during the day like today, Wednesday. Some people might ask, well, why aren't you there? Well, today is not a protest day. Today's a voting day. And it's almost 40 miles there and back. And I got a rear differential that's acting up in the Mustang. Sort of. In other words, I don't want to put unnecessary miles on it. That's the reality of it. So these people that can get there should get there. And they have been. Some have showed up, but they're outnumbered by the anti-gun people because Bloomberg is funding that group. I don't know if these protesters are being paid or what's going on. But they all show up in orange. I guess that's supposed to signify the gun thing now. I've noticed it on social media. These anti-gun people have an orange square. So no, they're not supporting Trump with an orange. You know, orange man bad. See a lot of people on the internet, and next to their name they put an orange. It means they support Trump, which is really funny if you think about it. So we got paramilitary voting today. 72-hour waiting period being voted on today. It didn't pass last year. And each one of the ones last year that didn't pass came up short just by a vote or two. So it was very close. My belief is they're all going to pass this time because they didn't do the gun control over the top, like magazine capacities, gun registries. None of that is ever going to fly here with the current balance in the Senate. I'm hoping we can gain more ground this fall, but this is the last session before April 16th, I think, or 20th, something like that. This legislative session will end until the end of summer, or during summer, I think. But for the spring, this is the last session. This was on their docket to get this gun stuff done before the break. So hopefully they don't make it. I've done what I can. I've posted it all over the internet, everywhere. Hopefully it made a difference. Full list of state senators and representatives. Gun Owners of Maine has been awesome. All the links and information, the PDF on what's in the bills. But this machine gun one really kills me. This is like completely ridiculous. Even if they pass it, people aren't going to pay attention to it. If they already own a binary trigger because it was legal, it's not going to become illegal all of a sudden. How are they going to enforce that? You know, they don't think of these things. So what are they going to do? Make a tax stamp now? If you want to have a binary trigger, register it with the government as a machine gun? I mean, that's not even in the federal laws, so that's stupid. So basically what they're doing is unconstitutional. And I think it's up to gun owners in Maine to just ignore it if they pass it and vote for other people. And I'm specifically talking to Democrat voters and independent voters. These are the same people that fought to keep Trump off the ballot. They're the same ones that cheated by editing Laurel Libby's video on the paramilitary training to make it sound like she was a Nazi sympathizer. These people are dirty and disgusting. And right now it's raining. Might get a little wet. If it rains too much, I'll put my hoodie on, even though I hate doing that. I really do. But anyway, So we're going to wait and see what kind of damage is done today by the Democrats. It's very clearly apparent also that they've decided not to listen to their voters and just go ahead and do it. They've been rushing everything through. Perfect example was Friday. Friday was the day for people to go speak up about it in person at the Capitol. And it was the day after a blizzard. So 3 people showed up. And they knew that would happen. They didn't reschedule it because they wanted to vote on it this week. So they absolutely do not care this time what the voters want, which is why I think everything's going to pass. And they're going to have upset voters, which is par for the course for November. So the Democrats have decidedly made up their mind. They're going to ignore democracy, ignore the Constitution, and they're just going to start behaving like it's a one-party state because that's what they want. That is socialism. That is, you know, they want to make the Republican Party a token party with a bunch of establishment rhinos, Republican in name only. So you can basically have Republicans that are Democrats. And this is what they did with other countries like Venezuela, Spain, many years ago, Italy to some extent, Germany. I mean, it's a long list. They do this everywhere. This is their carbon copy tactic that they use. And once you get people that delve out the money to run for office, they delve it out to like-minded people, and that's how that happens. The voters only have these people to vote for, and that's it. We only have Susan Collins in Maine. The Maine GOP and the national RNC are never going to fund somebody to run against her. She's part of the establishment, and if the Republican Party did that, it would anger a lot of donors, big money donors, who don't like people like Trump, and they don't like people coming in and trying to make a difference. So that's what they're going to do. And the only way around that is for a grassroots movement like the MAGA movement, where you get so many people involved in it that the Republican Party has to listen to the voters. Right now, the Republican Party has no spine, there's no fight, and the faction that does fight is heavily attacked by the media. And these other Republicans are cowards. They want to join in on that, but where they live, they're afraid they're going to lose. So they just play it safe. I'm going to play along a little bit with the Democrats so we make everybody happy. Because they're listening to polling that, in my opinion, is not accurate. There are people in this country who are not happy. Not just Republicans. I see it all the time. I see Democrats online saying, geez, I wish we could just stop fighting and get along. Biden ran on unity because he knew that too. His campaign did. They lied. We're actually more divided than we were. But they think they could just blame Republicans for everything, especially MAGA Republicans. When you get the President of the United States taking time out of almost every speech he makes to badmouth MAGA Republicans, and they're behind in the polls, so they see the numbers, they know what's going on. They're in trouble and they know it. Especially when you see people like James Carville, a very respected Democrat who helped Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton get elected, campaign strategist, said that young people are leaving the Democrats in droves, and that the DNC should stop registering voters because they're just going to vote for Trump. So, out of desperation, Biden is now calling for Israel to have a ceasefire to appease their crazy young voters that they have raised to be a little communist, because without that young voter vote for Biden, he's not going to win. They'll vote for RFK in whatever states he's on the ballot, and he won't be on all the state ballots. I don't think he's going to be on the main one. I don't know what's going on with this lawsuit he filed against Shenna Bellows, but she changed the rules so RFK Jr. could not be on the ballot here and siphon off Biden votes, and she tried to block Trump entirely off the ballot, and then tried to make it look like it was, oh, well, we're just following the law. That's a bunch of bunk. They knew what they were doing. That's why Trump put up the kind of numbers of a red state in the primary in Maine, which I don't believe he's ever done before. So the people have spoken. They don't like a thumb scale. And that was the independent voters. So I am counting on the independent voters, the libertarians, which there are quite a few in Maine, which is why Susan Collins always plays in between, and now she's more unpopular than she's ever been, I think, right now. And that's because they're misreading the voters. They don't get it. Things have changed. It's not 1996 anymore. And I mean, I've said this on my walks a million times. I apologize, but you know, this is all very frustrating. Nobody, like, a perfect example. One of my brothers works out of state, will order a firearm online. Oh, good. According to tracking, it should be there by Friday. I'll have it Saturday. Well, now you're going to have to put a three-day window in there if this passes. So, you know, this is going to inconvenience law-abiding citizens who haven't done anything wrong, and they're being punished. Just because some guy at the last minute that doesn't own a firearm might go buy one just to shoot his wife because they had a fight. You know, I don't know what 72 hours does. Because in my opinion, if I would be angry enough to shoot somebody, I'm pretty sure I would still be angry enough to shoot them 72 hours later. So, do they think a divorce goes away in 3 days? No. So the logic is, there's no evidence to back that up, I guess is my point. There really is. And they love saying that. There's no evidence to, well, there's no evidence to support that. Especially in Maine, most people here own firearms. They have them already. So, you know, red flag laws, that's basically the precursor to gun registration. Because you need to know what firearm somebody has if you're going to enact taking their firearms away. Now the police, they can get records of what somebody purchased with a warrant, which I'm assuming that's what they're going to do now with the red flag law. Somebody files a complaint because the FFL they bought the firearm from should have that on record. Now, which FFL did they use when they purchased it? So this is all ridiculous nonsense. And the Democrats just want it for their voters. See, we did something. So a machine gun law is going to look good in the media. We banned machine guns in Maine. any mechanically assisted triggers, which effectively turns any firearm into a machine gun. We just passed a law where you can't do that. Even though none has been used in a mass shooting, as far as I can tell. It's not something you would want to use in a mass shooting, to be honest with you, unless you were shooting on a crowd at a concert or something. But, you know, you got muzzle flip and things like that. You know, if you were fighting in combat, you would want to launch a bunch of bullets at somebody trying to kill you. But for a mass shooting, it's really not practical anyway. So it's kind of pointless. And I have no interest in owning one of those mechanically assisted triggers or binary triggers or bump stocks or anything like that. I've got no interest in it. But that's not the point. They shouldn't be doing what they're doing, taking rights. So anyways, that's what's going on in Maine. Check my lens, make sure there's no droplets on it. Nope. So I'm sure later today I'm going to find out this stuff passed. Janet Mills is going to rubber stamp everything and sign it. That's the governor of Maine. We have to win in November. That's it. We have to. If they gain any more seats, we're screwed. Constitutional carry will be taken away then, pretty sure. To get a super majority. Voters voted for it, that's the thing. They also voted for ranked choice voting. So these gun laws should have been up to the voters. That's all I'm saying. But that would be too easy, wouldn't it? Actually, wouldn't be easy. That's why they're not doing it. It's easier just to use the majority you have and steal people's rights. I think it's going to be time for me to be more active in politics. You know, like handing out pamphlets, maybe carrying around a petition with organizers. I mean, that's what they do, you know. I mean, you get enough signatures on a petition, you can get a bill introduced to be on the ballot. Kind of a big deal if somebody wants to get enough people together to do that. We got to protect our gun rights and other rights. You know, these people of, you know, look no further than Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New York, California, Illinois, New Jersey, any of those states. Maine is headed that way. If people don't, the only thing going for us right now is we're still a rural state, like New Hampshire and Vermont. They haven't been able to pass this stuff in New Hampshire and Vermont because it's a rural state and people own firearms, even the Democrats. So they would need a pretty big majority to do that here. And they would need to basically give the finger to the voters because the voters don't want that stuff here, even the Democrats. We could sit around and say, geez, I hope that just is true. But we have money from out of state being pumped into Maine. Now they just passed legislation banning people from outside the state interfering in our elections with money. But they didn't say anything about people like Michael Bloomberg funding banning guns with anti-gun groups. So that's what we're experiencing right now. Bloomberg's dollars. Multi-billionaire who lopped off $110 million funding these anti-gun groups, and then you listen to them speak in front of the committees, and they literally don't know what they're talking about with firearms, because they're talking to people that don't know about firearms. That's a real thing. Many of these elected people don't know anything about firearms. They've never owned any. They just know what they hear Joy Reid say, or Rachel Maddow, or Wolf Blitzer, or all these other people that are just full of BS on TV. And these New York Times columnists who are paid propagandists. I think we can all agree on that. So I'm a little hopped up today. I'm hopped up today on this firearms business. And this isn't even serious firearm legislation. 72-hour waiting period is. That is very annoying. It's going to piss off a lot of people, and I hope it does, because they didn't think this could happen in Maine. And they're going ahead to do it anyway. It has yet to pass, but I would be really hard-pressed to believe that it's not going to pass this time, because they've milked the mass shooting. They might get enough support from independent voters who kind of lean left, who own firearms, and are like, yeah, I love my firearms, but I don't want this stuff to happen. So we'll see what the fallout from that is. The 72-hour waiting period only missed being passed by like 2 votes. It was very slim. And if they're bringing it back out for another vote after being defeated last year, which ethically they shouldn't be doing, the voters spoke last time, but they don't care, so they don't care about the voter anymore. That is a very obvious difference this year from last. That's the strategy they're taking. That is the strategy Chuck Schumer just took this week, in case you haven't caught up on that. Mayorkas, who was responsible for our border, obviously a big failure. I believe it was intentional. So do a lot of other people. He was impeached by the House. Now you're supposed to have a Senate trial, and then the Senate can vote that he's not guilty, okay? Chuck Schumer is threatened to table it. They're not even going to bring that impeachment on the floor to have a trial. That would be the very first time in our nation's history that that ever happens, where a public official is impeached and the Senate holds no trial to give closure to the matter, to either prove the guy innocent or prove him guilty. So they don't even care if this guy's name is sullied, or they could at least have a trial and then prove that he's innocent in a trial. And so Chuck Schumer is not even going to do that. First time in our history. There's been 21 impeachments in our history, in case you didn't know. Every single one of those had a trial. Didn't matter what party was in power or what party was impeached, there was always a trial. This is the equivalent of, okay, imagine this: Trump is president, Democrats have the House, and they impeach one of Trump's officials. And then the Republicans in the Senate just say, well, we don't feel like having an impeachment trial, so we're just going to table it, sweep it under the rug, hope everybody forgets about it. How do you think that would go over? And this is exactly the same thing. So, the other piece of information you have to look forward to for November is even the Democrat polling and sources is saying that this is probably going to be one of the best years for Republicans for gaining seats in the Senate. There they go. So they say this is going to be one of the best years ever. Well, in a great long time, okay? For Republicans to pick up seats in the Senate, which would be huge, okay? Because typically what people do, and right now the Republicans have an absolutely one-seat razor-thin advantage in the House and Congress. Which basically means Republicans aren't going to be able to pass anything between now and November, even though they have the majority. And this was strategized by people who hate Trump. We had a congressman who was a rhino, noted anti-Trump, hated Trump. I'm going to walk on this side. I got a sidewalk. Decided to resign early this year and give up his seat. So they're going to have to do a special election. And I believe what happened is he waited past the deadline to do that, so you couldn't have a special election, which is the other indicator that this guy sold us out. And he resigned. I forget his name. I'm sorry, you can find it online if you look. I think he's the only one that did that. So he resigned, kind of a younger guy with dark hair. And so he resigned past the deadline to resign, so you can't have a special election to elect somebody in his place. And that was intentional. So now the Republicans lost one of their seats in Congress. So they went from a 3-seat majority, now they're down to 1. Now we all know what happened with Santos and Long Island. The Republicans under McCarthy were conned into removing him from his seat. They had a special election, and guess what? The Democrat won that seat because it was Long Island. So Santos, undeterred, says he's going to rerun for that seat in November. So I hope he wins it. It was a special election they had, so it was just a temporary replacement, but they replaced with a Democrat. So this is the kind of stuff going on behind the scenes that you don't hear about in the media. But, you know, I research this stuff, and so do a lot of other people. That's where the term rhino comes from. Republicans in name only. So, but another trend I've been seeing is people that are Democrats switching party to Republican, because I think they could see the writing on the wall. Republican Party is gaining momentum in those borderline states where the Democrats have just gone too far, basically. And I'm hoping that's what happens in Maine in November. People realize that the rumors about Democrats doing these things is true, because you can see it. So we'll see what happens with everything. I'm optimistic, I really am. Something has to change, Because if it gets worse, I don't think we're going to dig out of the hole. We're going to turn into a New York State eventually, or something worse. Now, we have had some good things happen, like the electric vehicle mandate thing. Maine's equivalent to the EPA voted it down, probably at the behest of Governor Mills, who realizes that's too far over the top, hurts Maine economically. We're not a big state. We don't have resources like California. California's GDP is like a country. It's huge. A good chunk of America's GDP is California. So just to give you an idea, it's much bigger than Texas's GDP. And Texas's GDP is the same as the Soviet Union used to be. Or actually, they used to be the Soviet Union, but Russia. Russia's GDP is pretty good sized. The state of Texas equals Russia. And California is much bigger than Texas with regard to GDP. So that's billions and billions and billions of dollars. So Maine does not produce that. We got 1.4 million people. That's it. A lot of them are old, retired, or whatever else. And an electric vehicle mandate in Maine would be very destructive economically. So we'll see what happens in Maine. You know, and these Democrat people, they live in your neighborhoods, literally. They're the people. They're the people in your neighborhood. So, you know, start talking with people. You know, I talked with the Democrat here on the phone a couple of times. Mike LaJoie. He voted to ban the paramilitary training. He believes with the firearms thing that it's a mental health issue. His voting record is spotty, let's put it that way, as far as he always makes sure he supports his Democratic Party, because that's what they do. Former fire chief in Maine actually lives up here. He lives up here around the corner from the school. That's the other thing about these elected officials. They have their home phone number, and they have their phone number at the Capitol in Augusta to leave a message. And they also have their address and email address. That is required that they put that stuff for the public. But his address is right around the corner here. When I looked him up online to call him, I had all that information on the city website and also the maine.gov website. They have that for everybody. Peggy Rotundo lives in Auburn. She's our state senator for Androscoggin. Androscoggin area. So I've sent her emails and phone calls as well. I'm sure it won't make a screw all of difference. Maybe it will if enough other people do. I doubt it. Most people don't get upset and angry until their rights are gone. They don't get upset and angry before they're gone. I get upset and angry before they're gone. I know what they're doing today, I guess is my point. They're not being democratic. They had an option. They had an option, for example, with the national popular vote. bill to have it put up for voters to decide, and they decided not to do it. That was intentional. That was a big middle finger to the voters. Something like giving up our electoral college vote to the person that wins your district. The way it is right now, we have 4. And pretty much most of the time, they always go to Democrats, all 4 of them. But the last 2 times, they went to Trump, one of them. And the Democrats don't like that. Because statistically, if a couple of states don't go Trump's way, he could end up having a 1 electoral college vote advantage with the one from Maine. So that's an electric car. So they want to take that away because Trump won an electoral college vote in Maine for the first time since Ronald Reagan. And they can't be having that, can they? So, and again, that won't take effect until Janet Mills still hasn't signed it, but I'm pretty sure she's going to. She hasn't said one way or the other, so maybe she has a surprise in store, but I wouldn't hold your breath. So anyway, I gotta cross the street here. Mr. Lajoie, that's actually his house right there behind these trees. I can see it. Yep, that's it. Hello, Mr. Lajoie. How are you? He's probably voting to take... He's probably voting for the... that's it right there. He's probably voting to have us wait 72 hours when we buy a firearm now. They're going to be voting this morning, and it is still morning. It's not noontime yet. I'm out for my walk now because later today it's going to be raining pretty good, actually. And over here, you can see this looks like another tree broke. They have it all chopped up, and they burn wood, so good for them. But that tree right there, a pine tree, looks like it snapped. That was not broken the last time I came by here. And you can see this person's thing here is all shredded from the wind across the street. So they got some wind damage there. You know, I was gonna get a little garage thing like that to park my vehicle in after the tree fell on our garage, and I decided not to. Because of that. There's too many storms around here. It's not a good idea. Pretty much in Maine, the best thing to do is to have a garage or don't have a garage. That's it. Those garages that you could set up in your yard like that are much cheaper than you think they would be. But anyway, so we'll see what the hell's shaking with the voting when I get back. They're voting right now, I believe. So, in fact, just before I left the house, the chamber session was just going live streaming online, which you can follow at maine.gov if you ever get interested in watching their voting. Sometimes I'll watch a rebroadcast so I can skip ahead. A lot of times it takes a while to get everything done, sometimes 3-4 hours. You know, they have roll calls and all this other stuff. But anyway, it is streamed for the public to watch on maine.gov, the Maine legislature link. So, we check those things out. I'll see what the hell happened today. I've signed up for the email notifications. So I got an email letting me know what the hell happened or didn't happen. I was really surprised last year when nothing passed. I don't think voters have changed their mind too much. But like I said, I don't think they're going to pay attention to voters this time. They're just going to go ahead and do it because they can. Maybe they feel pretty confident before the election's coming up. I don't know what the internal polling says for them. And this is why it's important, if you know somebody talking crazy, saying crazy things, especially a young person talking about killing people or drawing bloody pictures of mass murders, that you need to talk to somebody about it. Do not be silent, because if that kid goes out and starts killing people at a school, that's more of our gun rights gone. You know, they won't let a good tragedy go to waste, the Democrats. So, speak up. Call the police, it's okay. They'll go talk to them. All right, adjusting my stuff. We have a glory vehicle. Thanks. As you can see by the sky down that way, it's getting ominous. We'll be coming up on 4 miles shortly. So we got some robins here hopping around on the grass, eating bugs, doing what robins do. So anyway, this is an almost daily walking vlog, walking with Beau. I don't know how interesting my banter is or not, but I've said a lot of times, don't confront me none. I like going for my almost daily walks, and I like the yab. I like the yibber yabber, jibber jabber. Some people call it babbling, and they may be correct. So we'll see how this chest cam looks with the GoPro. One hour and 5 minutes, 4 miles. Good time. That's about 16 minutes a mile. Very good time. 16 or 17. If you take all your miles and you average them, I usually do between 15 and 17 minute average. 17 being a couple of 20-minute miles, because I stopped and smelled the roses somewhere. The 2 kids across the street playing on a rock. All right, hear a car coming. Yep. They have the eternal blinker on. We all know those people. I've done it. My car is a 2004 Mustang, and I like it because it doesn't have all of these electronic bells and whistles and noises, and basically it tells me when I forget the key on there or when I leave my lights on. That's all it does. Or if I forget to put my seatbelt on, bing, 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 bing. And then after a few minutes it stops. But I rarely do that. You start your car up, and you know, because you want to run it while you're checking like the transmission fluid. You got to check it with your engine running on a level surface. Things like that. I can hear it. Bing, 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 bing. Steep hill, very steep. There we go. Coming up to the top of it. Ooh, that got my hamstrings going. Burn, burn. All right, we made it. Worst part of the walk's over. Today, anyway. Actually, that first hill we had at the beginning of it, that was a very steep one. I might get the whole walk today in on one battery. That's how I know when I'm getting a good time. But if it should end, I'll swap it out. I'm hoping I make it. Air compressor. I don't think that's a compressor. No, it was gasoline powered. It's got a hose on it. I don't know what that is. Generator. They're getting their snowblower ready for storage. Shouldn't store your snowblower with no gas in it, by the way. Gas is a petroleum product. It prevents rust from humidity and stuff. So you just add a fuel stabilizer to it. It should be fine until spring or fall, or when winter starts this year. Hopefully winter doesn't start in the spring. That would be horrible. We end up with more of this stuff. So basically, this camera on the chest makes it like a point of view, like in a video game. So if you are pew, 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 shooting, it would be like a video game. Point of view video game shots. I love those. I'd probably like those a lot more these days for driving games. Back in the day, I liked seeing the car on the screen when you were driving instead of a steering wheel. But today, I might like it with the point of view of the race car driver. Especially with the technology they have today, I guess is what I'm saying. Modern gaming with the details. I saw one the other day. It was a video game, but it was a video game replay of a Volkswagen Beetle driving the Nuremberg ring on a video game. It looked pretty realistic, but it wasn't. It wasn't real, but it looked the part. All right, so I'm gonna hang a left up here. Speaking of Volkswagen Beetles, there's one right there. And the one I saw on that video game clip was the old 60s one, which there's really no way that would be racing a faster car like in the clip I saw, with an air-cooled top speed of 85, I think. Maybe 90 if the wind's pushing behind you. And so I don't think so. Plus the engine's in the back, so probably a good thing that they didn't put a lot of power in those engines, because air would have got underneath them and people would have been flying up off the road like they did with the Porsches. So it looks like pretty much I'm going to get my whole walk in without getting too wet. I'm actually kind of surprised by that. I'm going to come up a little short on my 5 miles, but I'm going to sign off before then because I got to walk further down the street till I get to 5 miles and then turn back, and we've already seen it. So then I'm going to go home, which is also a ways up the road. Oh, the Poochies, my buddies. Got a black poodly looking dog. It's a large poodle. Hello. Hi. The dog wants to kill me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to sign off. Thank you for walking with me today. Click like and subscribe. Share the gun videos, please. And hope you have a beautiful day. And we're going to rain for the next couple days, so I probably won't be walking unless I get a good opportunity to do so. In between the raindrops, if I get an hour and a half with no rain, we'll see what happens. Thanks, everybody. Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.